Testing the oscilloscope with no inputs connected. We start by switching the oscilloscope on from the power. Clear the menu screen by pressing the menu off button. As you can see, there are 3 traces visible and the 4th trace is not there. If we press the auto set button, it will attempt to find a signal on each input. Trace number 4 has now got a signal. The other traces haven't. If you look closely at the signal amplitudes, each trace is set the same. So each input is set to 50 millivolts, which means 50 millivolts per division. So the green trace, which is trace number 4, which is this one, has a signal which is not being fed into the instrument clearly. If we adjust the time base of the oscilloscope, a strange thing happens. If we increase the time base, we see eventually this signal becomes clearer. So this green waveform is apparently coming from here. Now, as you can see, there are some small signals present on the other inputs. This is quite normal. However, a very strange thing happens when we try and adjust the size of this, try to adjust the amplitude of this input. If we select channel 4 and adjust the amplitude, what should happen is this green waveform should get smaller. It should change in size, but it doesn't. So if we go to 10 millivolts per division, this should get really big. If we go the other way, it should get really small. So now I have 10 volts per division. This is a huge signal. This is several tens of volts. However, it's not changed at all. The other strange thing is it's impossible to move this waveform on the screen. If I select the channel and move up and down, you can see the green marker here moving, but nothing happens. It doesn't actually move. If I temporarily turn this channel off to make it clearer and try and move channel 3, the purple one, it moves, which is what you'd expect it to do. And this level of noise present is what you'd expect to see when there's nothing connected to the input. If I select channel 3, that's set to 50 millivolts per division, which means that each square is 50 millivolts in size. So if it was filling the square, it would be 50 millivolts. If I make that number smaller, it increases the sensitivity, so it should show more. And if I make the number lower, it should actually get smaller. So if we do that for channel 3, so we've got channel 3 selected, so this control will alter the size. So I've made that 20 millivolts, made that 10 millivolts, made that 5 millivolts, made that 2 millivolts. So at 2 millivolts there is some noise showing here. If I go the other way, volts, barely anything at all. This is just noise generated in an instrument, but at 10 volts there is just a tiny signal. If I switch back channel 4, again alter the amplitude, I'd expect to see the same thing happening, but it doesn't. Never changes. Channel 4 is producing this strange waveform which is not there because clearly there's nothing connected to the instrument. The amplitude never changes and we cannot get rid of it. The other strange thing that happens, which doesn't make any sense, if we adjust the time base and if we adjust it slower and slower, channel 4 actually stops working at low time base speeds. And another peculiar thing is that channel 3 turns green. So at this point, channel 4, there is nothing happening, there's no trace. If I select channel 4, try and move it up and down, the cursor on the side moves up and down, but nothing happens. If I increase this, as you see, there's still nothing connected to the unit. If I increase the time-based speed, suddenly this appears. Where did that come from? This is internally generated in the instrument. It's not normal. And if I select channel 4 to try and move it up and down on the screen, the little marker on the side moves up and down, but the waveform doesn't go away. The other thing I can do with channel 4 is if I ground the input, so this currently the inputs are live, they're waiting for a signal, but if I select the ground of the input, that should kill the input. That should stop whatever's happening on this channel from being visible, but it doesn't. So none of these settings have any effect whatsoever.